Oh, do we need anyone on Skype? Okay, do any of you know if any of your foreign students need to listen in on Skype, or are they all on the Tandberg? Okay. In that case, I'll assume we're good on Tandberg. Okay, so hopefully you'll have and have briefly at least glanced at Lab 4. In this lab, we're going to be going over assembly parametrics. So, and making them robust. Okay. With the foreign school, just make sure that you mute your mic. Unless you have a question, then please unmute it.
What's that? Yeah.
If anyone needs me to get on Skype, can you just tell me? And then we will.
Maybe ask right on join.me, just ask if anyone, just send it out real quick.
Hello, Nico, are you there?
Okay, so here is the assembly. As you can see in your lab, I'm just going to stay here. Here's a picture of a much nicer looking one. This is one that I put together pretty quickly, but I was able to do it fairly simply. So what it is it's basically a suspension control arm thing for a car or whatnot. But what really concerns us is the assembly. Now what we've sent you, you should download the file from the website. It's an assembly file called Conrod subassembly. If you open it up, it'll look like this, just a couple of lines without these other parts that I've made. So, oh, and also this is real important. So we're gonna this group activity we're doing is going to be each team is going to do 2 versions of it. We're going to have the 3 BYU students do 1 copy of their own, and the 3 foreign students do their copy as well. So you're going to have 2 copies of this, 2 groups within your team. So that makes sense. So right now you're going to be working with the students who you are with right now. So the point of this is, if you can see, these parts fit around the skeleton that's there. And Dr. Jensen's already lectured about assembly skeletons and whatnot. And the point of this lab is that we're going to learn how and practice how to make, or basically take an assembly skeleton and then make the parts to fit around it that will then be parametric and be robust and stuff according to the skeleton. So if I look at this quick skeleton that I have some parameters already here. Tools, expressions, brings up the list of parameters. So you just have to play around with them or ask us which are which. But for example, this one, con rod length. So this is the connector rod right here. This line represents. And so if we change that, as you can see, it will get longer, right? Or down here, this is the lower control arm. We have width 1, width 2, and then length is this one here. And so if I go to lower control arm length, for example, and change that one to a different value, then this will get longer, right? So the skeleton is these lines that make up the skeleton are parametric. We can change them. And then the idea, what we're going to do is we're going to build some geometry around that skeleton that is constrained to the skeleton itself. And so then when the skeleton moves, that geometry will also move. To demonstrate that, if I turn these parts back on, you'll see that they move. So if I change the, and notice I'm not changing things I'm not in the lower control arm. Here I am in work mode, right? I'm in the assembly, so I'm changing assembly parametrics, but the effects are trickling down into the part. So if I change one of these widths, it will change the width of the part, right? So you can change, everything in the assembly will update according to that skeleton. So let me just move these back. This one's 30. So what you're going to do is you're going to make these 5 parts. The connector rod, the ball joint, the small pin, which is right there, the upright, which is this piece, and the lower control arm. Now in the picture they're quite detailed, and we would encourage you to make them more detailed than I have here, but still don't go overboard. Like, I remember when I took the class, I had a ton of, because I did the upright here, and I had lots of trouble with those triangles and stuff. So I think if you just make a box cut out in the middle here, that's probably sufficient. But just make something that's parametric that'll still work. Because the idea of this is not to learn how to model complex geometry or stuff. The idea is we're learning how to use the assembly, right? The assembly parametrics. So what we're going to do, I'm going to delete this part and remake it. Okay. So I need to make a new part in here. So if I go to Start, make sure you're in Assemblies, and that will bring up the Assemblies toolbar down here. And so if we have a part that we want to put into an assembly, we add the component. But since we're doing this top down, we have the assembly, and we're going to create a new component on the bottom. So if I click on the arrow next to here and say Create New Component, then I will make the part, and I'll call it Lower Control Arm 2. And it's just a model. It's good. It's in the right folder that I want it. Okay. And then I'm just going to click OK because I don't want to bring anything into that part. So now I have a part called Lower Control Arm 2 that there's nothing in there. It just has a data coordinate system, right? Now here's the important thing. When you have the, so here I'm in, this is the work part, right? Or the assembly is the work part. So if I go into, if I make this the work part, but not the display part, there's a difference. If I go to display part, it's going to open it up in its own window, right? But if I go to window, then I'll come back to the assembly, and I can still, if I make any changes, if I make any sketches, it's going to happen, it's going to create them in this part, not in the assembly, because it's the work part, right? So while it's the work part, we want to wave down geometry. And where'd it go? Here we are. So like this doesn't have the button. Assemblies. Okay, so if you don't have this button, then you're going to want to put it in. It's called Wave Geometry Linker. It has a little, looks like chain links, 2 little rings, right? So you're going to want to add that button because that's what we're going to be using a lot. So I'm in the, this is my display part. I'm working on this, but I can still see the other parts and the assembly. In fact, I'm going to turn off these parts just so they don't get in the way. So I can tell I want to wave down. I want to, okay, so what waving down is I basically make a copy of something in the assembly. So I want to make a copy of these lines from the assembly and make them and put them in my part. And then they're linked to the assembly. So if the assembly line changes, then my line will also change in my part. That's how they're linked together. So if I just click on here, Wave Geometry Linker, and then it asks what do you want. You can even wave down datums or whatever, but usually it's going to be curves or datums or whatnot. So I want to wave down this one, and I would suggest not clicking all 3 at once. I would suggest just doing one at a time, because then it'll bring it in as separate components. So I wave that one down, and then I'll wave this one down, and I'll wave this one down. And as you can see, now they're blue because now they are now they are in my part. So if I look at here, I have now 3 curves that I've waved down in my part. So in fact, I can even go to, if I just look at my part here now, there are those 3 lines that I need to work with.
Can you just show me that real quick one more time, just the wave down operation?
Sure. So if you, it's down here in Assemblies. If you don't have the Assemblies bar, then go to Start Assemblies.
Right.
And then if you don't have this button, it's this one that looks like 2 chains, right? 2 links in a chain. So if you click on that, then it'll ask what you want to wave down. In fact, I could even, if I go back to here, and there should be a datum. Let's see. Yeah, so that datum plane is right where I want it. So I could either create a new datum plane in my part, or I could just wave down that datum plane. So if I go to datum, and then I can just click on that, and now I have a copy of that datum in my part. And if that datum ever moves in the assembly, it'll move in my part as well. So we'll make this the display part again, and here we are. And then you just have to make something, make a sketch that will be constrained around around these parts. So sketch mode, if you're familiar with NX6, NX 7.5 is a little bit different. You can get to, okay, we're going to sketch on this plane. Okay. You can actually sketch, it won't flip it into the sketch mode. There's a way to do that, but I don't remember how to do it. But, so if I just want to make this sketch, I know according to my drawing that it's only going to be as wide as these lines. The bottom is going to be this wide and the top's going to be this wide, but they're going to go a little bit longer because these lines also represent the center line.